Okay, cool. So hi everyone, I'm Jackie and we're gonna make yogurt. And if you have any thoughts or questions, the best thing is to say it out loud, unmute yourself. Otherwise I'll go and look at the chat like periodically if that works for you. So thanks everyone for donating to the Grow Roots Miami fundraiser. Yay, they're doing really good work already. And my gift to you is the knowledge to make yogurt. So making yogurt is very easy and you don't need to like get anything fancy. Don't buy a yogurt maker, that's stupid. You probably have everything that you need already in your home, except for maybe some milk and some yogurt. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Yogurt is fermented dairy. It's like pretty much considered to be the oldest fermented dairy product, like the first thing that people started fermenting with milk. And milk, the mammalian lactation of all mammals, but generally we do like cows and goats and sometimes sheep and like maybe camels and yaks back in the day. We're the only species that drinks the milk of another animal. And the milk is like specially made just for growing the baby of that animal. So it's kind of odd for adult versions of the animal or also adult versions of other species to be able to consume the milk. And that's why most people are lactose intolerant in the world. It's actually a minority of people who can digest milk into their adult years. But one way to make milk more digestible is to ferment it. And so that's to allow beneficial bacteria to move in and start eating up the sugars in the food and converting it into stuff that our bodies like better than sugar. Although like our brains like sugar the most, our digestive systems have trouble, dealing with breaking down sugar. So however, we really can easily digest acid, gas, and alcohol. So generally with fermentation, the bacteria are eating sugar and converting it into acid, gas, or alcohol. In this case, with yogurt, it's mostly acid. Maybe you get some gas in like a very fizzy fermented yogurt. My dog's coming in to say hello. She's very cute. You might hear her drinking right now. So with yogurt, what's happening is that we're adding in a starter culture or a seed culture of bacteria. And that is like the right colony of bacteria and maybe a couple of different yeasts thrown in there too. And that seed culture is like an heirloom that's passed on from generation. So it's possible to like grow it in a lab and perhaps spontaneously wild fermented yogurt is a thing somewhere, but traditionally that's not how you do it. You get your yogurt from someone else, and that yogurt is just the seed culture. So that's often in like cheese making, that's called back slopping, when you add a little bit of your product into your next product in order to inoculate it with the bacteria and let it keep going. So you need to have yogurt to get started to make yogurt. But I have some yogurt that my friend Jennifer gave me from Sandor Cats, and this is a great strain that has just been like a workhorse for years and years. A lot of times when you buy a yogurt starter on the internet, like maybe you can use it like 20 or 25 times and then it kind of peters out and you have to get a new starter. This one has been going forever. But if you don't have Sandor Cats' yogurt starter, that's okay. You can get many different yogurt starters on the internet at places like culturesforhealth.com. I think Gem Cultures might have some, Etsy, like just wherever. The internet is full of yogurt. And also the supermarket is full of yogurt. And you can just use some yogurt from the supermarket as long as it doesn't have like added sugars or other flavors. You want to make sure that the only thing in the yogurt is milk and like enzymes is usually what it says, but like some live active cultures. So that will work to get you going. That's one of those things that like you probably are not going to be able to continue to make yogurt again and again and again forever. With like Organic Valley yogurt from the store, because those jerks like create strains that are not meant to continue on forever. so that we'll keep buying yogurt from them, I guess. But let's take the power back and make it ourselves. It's very easy. So all you need to make yogurt is yogurt, which you can get from, you know, all of those sources that I just mentioned, and then some milk. And before we get started, I'm just going to check here. It's just me doing this to see if anybody else is in the waiting room. No, it's just us. It's very intimate. So I have some milk that I got here from the supermarket. And this is like, you know, hippie milk, but you don't have to, you can just use whatever. I wouldn't use, like, this is ultra pasteurized, which is not great for cheese making. Yes, you've got a question, Michael. But I can't hear you talking. No, you can try and sign it, but you can just send it in the chat. I'm going to keep talking at the camera while you type it in the chat, maybe. So any kind of milk is fine, as long as it's not like, you know, powdered, shelf stable, whatever. But with some different types of cheese making, you have to like only use, you know, non-ultra pasteurized milk, or you have to make sure that it's not homogenized. This is whatever you want. But the nicer quality milk you start with, the nicer quality your yogurt is going to be moving forward. So just get some milk. However much yogurt you want is how much milk you should use. So I used about a quart of milk. I started heating it up on the stove already so that we could like move things along here. So basically we're just going to heat the milk up to like 180 degrees. And it can be 165 all the way up to boiling. I like 180. And what's happening there is that we are denaturing the proteins in the milk. So milk is made up of water, mostly, sugar, fat, protein, vitamins and minerals, right? And the proteins are often what this fermentation process is manipulating in dairy. So what happens with the proteins, which are called casein, is that when the bacteria eat up all the sugar, they convert it into acid. And when the acid gets high enough, that turns on an alarm in the proteins. And the proteins say, oh, we're awake now, we need to like glob together. And they all glob together and they form a solid. And so that's like what happens with cheese when we're making curds and whey. But with yogurt, we want kind of more like a jelly than a solid, right? We don't want curds. So we're kind of weakening the proteins by heating them up to a level that they don't like, which is above 160 degrees, anywhere between that and boiling. Now, one thing to note is that the length of time that you take to heat it up is going to impact your final texture. So if you like heat it up really fast, like just put it on high and let it come to a boil, you might get a kind of grittier, chunkier yogurt. Whereas if you do like a low and slow, really slow all the way to 180, that's going to be smoother. And then if you want a thicker product, try and maintain it at that high temperature, like 180, and let it kind of, you know, condense a little bit. And that's going to give you a nice thicker product. And I'm just going to check the chat right now because I saw that you had a question there. Oh no, that's not the chat. Okay, it does have to be cow's milk? Nah, whatever. The only thing that I don't know about that is that if you're using goat's milk, for example, you might need a goat's milk yogurt starter, but I would say give it a try. Nut milk is a different thing. You can make vegan yogurts, but not with this method. So you can use kefir though, kefir grains, and it's actually almost easier. So there's lots of places on the internet that you can figure out recipes for like nut and coconut yogurt. And then did I say this is, yes, I'm recording it right now. So I'm gonna put it up on my website and we'll have it forever. And then I've got one more time. Yogurt and kefir, it's like the difference between gingerbug soda and kombucha. So they're both like a fizzy-ish, sometimes they're both a fermented dairy product, but they have different seed cultures of bacteria. So kefir is like a little brain. It's a SCOBY, the way that it's like a solid fermentation mother, the way that a SCOBY is. And then yogurt is this backslop, like, you know, culture that you sort of save and keep going. So just different flavors, different historical and geographic histories, and different final product. Personally, I like the flavor of yogurt better than I like the flavor of kefir, but some people, it's much, kefir, you don't have to do this whole heating up, cooling it down, incubate it thing. You just like put it in the milk, put it on the counter, and then it turns into kefir in 24 hours. So that's much easier. So that is another option. Okay, so anyway, step one of the yogurt, right? We're on step one so far, is to just heat up the milk to 180-ish degrees. Last night I put the milk on and I went upstairs and I forgot about it. And when I came back down, it was simmering. That's fine. It's no big deal. This is not the kind of thing that you have to like worry about, you know, every temperature granule. Like, it doesn't matter. Just heat up the milk enough to denature the proteins. So we want to get ours to above, at least above 165, like 180 is my target, and we're about 180 right now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now. And so we've successfully denatured the proteins in the milk. Okay, so now I need to cool it down. So we just heated it up, and now we need to cool it down. And the easiest thing to do is just let it sit on the stove until it's cool. But if you want to speed things up, you can just do a little water bath. So I filled up a pot of ice cold water, which I can't. I thought there would be a way for me to show you the inside of the pot, but that's not possible. So I've got cold water in here, and then I'm going to put my bowl on top, right? And I'm just going to put the hot milk into the bowl. And then sort of being in that water bath is going to cool it down. And you can like stir it, and that'll kind of help things out. But the reason that we're doing this is because I want to get my hot milk to a temperature that the yogurt bacteria can survive in. Not just survive, but thrive. So 180 degrees is too hot for them. It'll just kill them, right? They like around 110 degrees. So yogurt bacteria are usually, when you're fermenting dairy, there's two types of bacteria. There's thermophilic and mesophilic. Mesophilic are like 86 degrees happy Fahrenheit, and thermophilic are about 110 degrees happy. So they love it at 110 degrees. So what we're going to do is just let this kind of cool down to 110 degrees, and then we're going to add our yogurt starter. So I'm going to let that sit here, and I'm very worried it's going to tip, but hopefully it won't. So I've got some yogurt from a previous batch here, and I'm just going to add, I like to do about 1 tablespoon for every quart of milk. Is that correct? No. I like to do 1 tablespoon for every half gallon of milk. Okay? So 2 tablespoons for a gallon. However, it also doesn't really matter that much. You don't need a ton, right? Don't put in like a whole cup of yogurt starter. Don't put in 1/4 of a teaspoon. But I would say like for this amount, I've got about a quart. I'll put about a teaspoon of yogurt starter. If I put in a tablespoon, that would probably be fine. If I put in 2 tablespoons, that would probably be fine. It's okay. It might speed up or slow down the rate of fermentation, like how fast things. So it might affect how fast it coagulates. It might affect the overall acidity of it, but it's gonna be fine. So anyway, I've got a little bit of this. It's smelling a little yeasty. It's been in my refrigerator maybe for like 3 months, but still good. Nothing gross in there. Sometimes I haven't made yogurt for like months and months, and I have gone into the fridge and seen that there's a little bit of mold in my yogurt that I was holding back for my starter. That's fine. Just scoop the moldy bits off the top, use a little bit from underneath, and keep on going. The beneficial bacteria that are generally at work in fermentation are very hardy, and they're going to fight off the bad guys. And if they don't, you'll know, because it will smell and taste gross, and you won't want to eat it. And that's, our senses are the best way to know if something has like worked in regards to fermentation. So what I want to do now is add a little bit of the cool milk into my yogurt starter to kind of thin it out. Now, I'm going to check the temperature right now. This is not long enough. It's not 110 degrees right now, but this is also fake because it's just a demonstration and it doesn't matter if this yogurt works or not. So I already have more yogurt than I made last night in the fridge. So, oh, look, it's 110 degrees. Amazing. Okay, so now we're ready to keep going and make our yogurt. Probably in reality, I would need to let this cool down for like 25 minutes in order to get to 110, but whatever, we're not doing that right now. So instead, I'm going to take my 110 degree yogurt or milk, and I'm gonna add it to my starter. This is a silly way to do it. I'm gonna just pour it like an adult. All right. So just a little bit of that 110 degrees milk into my yogurt starter, and that's just gonna thin it out now. Is there a way that I could do this? No. So you see, it's kind of like a little bit gloopy, right? And this is just gonna help when I add it to the milk. So now I'm inoculating my milk with this yogurt, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and give it a good stir so that it's completely, spread out. All the bacteria that I added in that little teaspoon, I want it like all throughout the milk. So I'm gonna give it a good stir, all right? And now, so that was step 2. So step 1, heat the milk up to 180 degrees. Step 2, cool the milk down to 110 degrees and add a bit of yogurt starter, which is just yogurt, to inoculate it with bacteria. Step 3 is to incubate the milk. So this is the step I think that like turns a lot of people off because you think, oh, I need to have like a yogurt maker or an incubator or something that's going to keep, basically incubation is just to keep the food at the correct temperature for an extended period of time. So we want to keep the yogurt at 110 degrees because that's the temperature that our thermophilic bacteria thrive at, right? So I need to find a way to keep this milk at 110 degrees for about 12 hours. And during those 12 hours, the bacteria that we added are going to nibble up all the sugars, and they're going to convert it into acid, and they're going to make bacteria babies, and they're going to do the same thing. And so now I'm going to have a whole colony of bacteria that's taken over this milk. And it's going to be slowly raising the acidity level until the proteins get turned on. And when the proteins get turned on, they're going to say, all right, it's acidic enough, it's time to coagulate. And that is when it goes from a liquid to that sort of semi-solid jelly-like texture. So that's what the incubation is doing, right? It's allowing the bacteria to have a happy, comfortable environment so that they can do the work for us and turn our milk into yogurt through that sort of transformation from sugar to acid. And then textural transformation that goes along with that from liquid to like semi-solid. So it's hot right now in my house in Florida. If I like put this in a pot and put a lid on it on the counter, it would probably maintain close to 110 degrees for a while. But if I want to be like a little bit safer about it, there's a few different things that I can do. So first of all, I don't want to store my yogurt in this bowl. So I'm going to get a clean jar, and it can be, you know, whatever kind of jar you want. It doesn't matter. And I could like, you know, a fun thing that I could do, oh, I have them somewhere, is like get like tiny little serving size containers, and I could fill up like 10 of these, right? And then incubate them all, and then every morning just have my own little single serving of yogurt. So anyway, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just put it all in this container, right? And I'll go ahead and put the lid on it. And now I'm gonna fill a pot with 110 degree water. This one has water in it about halfway, and I'm gonna plop that in there, stick it in the oven, and I'm gonna turn the oven light on. And the combination of the heat of the milk plus the heat of the water plus the heat of the light in the oven is gonna keep it at 110 degrees for as long as I need it to be. So I'm gonna say like 12 hours from now, my yogurt will be ready. I'm not going to check it 12 hours from now because that would be like 3:30 in the morning. So this will probably go more like 16 hours. And that just is going to mean that the bacteria will have a little bit more time to eat up the sugar and acidify the milk. So I'll have a more sour final product. I'm okay with that. That sounds great to me. So anyway, oven is the easiest for me way to incubate my yogurt. Another easy way is to use an Instant Pot, which now these things are ubiquitous enough that I can just say that because a lot of people have them in their house. There's just a function and you press incubate and put it in there and it's fine. Don't have an oven or don't want to keep the light on in your oven and you don't have an Instant Pot, use a styrofoam cooler. Same principle with the pot, right? Fill it up with 110-degree water, stick your yogurt containers inside, seal it up, that's gonna be fine. Really, it will maintain its heat for quite a while. So you don't have to get anything fancy for it. And it will, in 12 hours, even in all these kind of DIY settings, still produce a lovely yogurt. So I did this ahead of time last night so that I could have some yogurt to show you. So I'll just go into my fridge. And so I put this in my oven last night, maybe around 9, and then at like 9 in the morning, I took it out and it had solidified. Okay, so we can see now, right? The light isn't great right now, so I don't know if you can see, but like this is a solid, yeah? The milk is not pouring out. And that's how I can tell that the yogurt has solidified in the oven, like that it's ready to go, is because when I tip the jar, it's solid. Sometimes you can see with this, there's a tiny bit of whey, which is like the, we don't have to go in that right now. It's the liquid in the yogurt. There's a little bit of whey forming, pooling on the top. That's kind of moving around. But anyway, it's quite solid. Now it's even more solid because it's been in the refrigerator since 9. So when you first take it out of the oven, it'll like, you want to get it in the fridge and let it cool down and solidify even more before you eat it. But this has a really nice texture. It's like quite smooth and lovely, if you can see it. And it's not like crazy thick, but it's also not like super duper thin, which I don't like. And it's great. It's tangy, it's acid, but not too acid. I might have burnt the milk a little bit, so I taste a little bit of that, but that's okay. It's very nice. So now I have my yogurt, and I'm just gonna enjoy this jar of yogurt, but I'm gonna save a tablespoon or 2 at the bottom, and I'm gonna use that to inoculate my next batch of yogurt so that I have yogurt forever and ever and ever, right? So that's very important. Don't eat your yogurt starter all the way, right? You have to make sure that you save a little bit for your next batch. So that's it, we made yogurt. We took some nice milk, we heated it up to 180 degrees, and then we cooled it down to 110 degrees. We added a little bit of bacterial starter, and then we kept that milk with the bacterial starter at 110 degrees. We incubated it for 12-ish hours. And after 12 hours, we have yogurt. So a few things that you can do with this now. If I wanted to make Greek yogurt, which a lot of people like, which is like a very thick version, I would get a cheesecloth or even like a thin kitchen towel. Like, let me get a good example. Here we go. Like this kind of, thin cotton towel, and I'd put that on top of a sieve on a bowl, and I'd pour all the yogurt into it, and I'd let the whey, the liquid, just kind of drip out over the course of maybe a day in the fridge. And I'm gonna be left with like a nice solid thick yogurt on top. If I kept doing that maybe for 3 days, I would have what's called lebna, which is a Middle Eastern yogurt cheese, and that's gonna be like spreadable. It's like a cream cheese, very delicious. Another great thing to do with yogurt is to make frozen yogurt, which is a very easy thing to do. Usually like 1/3 cup of sugar or honey to a cup of yogurt, I like to put in a little bit of lemon zest. You cool that down, and cool your base down, mix it together, cool it down in the fridge, and then just process it in your ice cream maker, and that's frozen yogurt. If I wanted to be like extra fancy with this, I would have maybe only filled up my yogurt container to like there, and then when it came out of the fridge, or out of the oven rather, I would put in like fruit and honey, and then I could mix it all in together and store it in the fridge that way. Also, if I wanted to have sweetened yogurt, which you shouldn't do because we all get enough sugar, but if that's your thing, that's fine. Or if I wanted, actually no, I'm gonna take that back. If you wanna like sweeten your yogurt with honey or sugar, do that after you ferment it, because we don't wanna mess with the sugar levels too much. So I could add honey to it, but maybe let's say I wanted to add vanilla to it, or cinnamon, or cardamom, or like nice, spiced flavors. Add those spices directly to the milk as it's heating up, and that's going to infuse it, or lavender, or whatever kind of tea, really. So you can play around with the flavoring that way. And that is kind of it. So does anybody have any questions about anything that we covered so far? Feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself and just ask away.
I joined late, so could you start over real quick?
Yeah, so let's do one more sort of basic, the steps to making yogurt, so that it's so easy. And also, I can't see your name there, Nick. Yeah. The whole recording is going to be on my website, so you can check it out. But basically, to make yogurt, you just need milk, and you need a little bit of yogurt from a previous batch. If you don't have like a heirloom yogurt starter, you can, one, buy one on the internet, or two, just get some yogurt from the store. Any kind of yogurt will be fine as long as it doesn't have added sugars, or like fruit or that kind of thing in it. Makes sense. So just those two things, milk and yogurt. We're going to heat the milk up to about 180 degrees. That's going to denature the proteins, making them sort of more malleable to the fermentation process, to this kind of coagulation of the protein that's going to happen. So we want to heat it up to 180 degrees, doing like a low and slow method. So take a half an hour or more to heat that milk up. We don't want to do it really fast. And that's going to produce a smoother texture. Whereas if we like let it heat up and go to a boil, it's going to get kind of gritty. It'll still work, it just won't be like the most beautiful texture. So I heat the milk up to 180 degrees, that denatures the proteins, and then I cool the milk down to 110 degrees. And I can do that sitting it on the counter, putting it in an ice bath, however you want. So once it gets to 110 degrees, I'm going to add my yogurt starter. And 110 degrees is the temperature that the yogurt bacteria thrive at. So that's why I'm trying to hit that temperature mark. So at 110 degrees, I'm going to add like about 2 tablespoons of yogurt for every gallon of milk. So for this, I did a quart of milk, and I did about a teaspoon of yogurt. So I mixed that in really thoroughly. And now I need to pour that into some kind of container. I did a little, mason jar, something like that. I just pour it in and I incubate it. And incubating it means that I'm keeping it at 110 degrees for about 12 hours. And that allows the bacteria to do their work and ferment the milk and turn it into yogurt. So I chose to do that in my oven with the light on. So I put it in like a pot filled with 110 degree water, stuck it in the oven, put the light on, and that's good enough. But you could also do it in a cooler, or in an Instant Pot, or in a crock pot, anything that's going to keep it at about 110 degrees.
Cool.
So that is it.
Well, I wrote it all down. It was a good
Also, I have a recipe for how to make yogurt on my website, which is sunshineandmicrobes.com.
Cool.
You should also subscribe to our newsletter, which is all about fermentation, climate change, social justice, and culture as it relates to the food world and whatever else we're thinking about at that moment. So that's anyway, yeah, it's totally great. Any other thoughts or questions? Michael's already subscribed. Thank you, Michael. All right.
I was going to ask, is there any, besides saving money and creating an endless supply of yogurt, Are there other benefits, because you're starting your starter from, or you could be from like the grocery store, are there other, does it be change like a nutritional value once you start doing it at home or anything like that? Or is it more of just having your own supply?
My non-professional opinion is no. There are no health benefits, except that you can control the inputs. So it might be that you're using a, higher quality milk. Like if you can get your hands on some fancy grass-fed milk from your neighbor, that's going to be a nutritionally denser product than like whatever Dannon is using. But I don't think that the reason to do this is for added nutritional benefit. Another big issue is that yogurt, a lot of yogurt at the supermarket contains an insane amount of sugar, like candy bar levels of sugar. So this is a way to control that sugar intake. But for me, I do it because I think the flavor is better because I really like my yogurt starter. It's much cheaper than if you have to like buy the, fancy organic yogurt at the store. And I can sort of, have my hands in it, which is just, to me, a more satisfying experience. Sorry, say it again?
So you get your own bacteria in it. I forget what the word is for that, right? There's a word for it when you...
That like the idea of
the
like
hand bacteria. Yeah.
Totally. It's like my product.
Yeah.
I saw another question in the chat, so I'm just going to go into there.
Love it.
3 days over cloth creates what type of yogurt? Oh, it's called, I say Lebna. I don't know if that's right. I've also heard Labineh. So it's spelled a few different ways, but if you look up Labneh on the internet, you'll see it. It's a Middle Eastern cheese. It's spreadable, but also sometimes people will like roll it into balls and then preserve it in oil with herbs. I find it makes a very nice cream cheese substitute. So like you could do like a little everything bagel, spice mix in with your Lebna and have like a wonderful brunch.
A place I used to get it from, a Lebanese place, would put oil and like za'atar.
Yeah, super good.
Super good.
Yeah. Now you can do it yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
to
excited.
buy it from them. Although maybe support them right now because it's hard.
Oh, they're in California, so I got. I would have to go back.
Yeah.
It'll be great. Great.
All right. Any other questions?
Say something. Intimate
What,
audience.
Matt?
Since you have an intimate audience, does anyone have any questions about anything food related or fermentation?
Anything about anything.
You're working on?
I'll do my best. You can ask me a question about geology.
Anybody want butterfly pea flowers? I am overrun with them these days.
My friend is giving me some tomorrow. Where are you located, though? I might be able to take some more.
I'm in the Grove.
Oh no, sorry, that's too far for me to drive for butterfly pea flower. Okay. Anything else?
Far from everybody doing this kind of stuff is so far away from here. I'm like,
well, I live in Stewart, so that's like legitimately not in the same city as you.
Yeah. Very.
But there's so many great people doing fermentation and nice things in Miami.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
One more question.
So I think, is there another question?
Yeah, Matt's got something.
Yes. Mixing fruits or honey was before going into the fridge, correct? Yeah, however you want to do it. What I like to do is like just put it on top and then mix it when I'm eating it. Because when you mix it, it's gonna kind of loosen up the texture. So if you want that nice solid texture, like get your yogurt, maybe let it sit in the fridge to solidify a little bit, put the honey and the fruit and whatever, and then let it store in the fridge. Or you could put it right on top after it comes out of the oven. It might just kind of sink in a little bit. But actually, that can be very nice. So really, it's up to you. Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for taking some time out of your Saturday and making yogurt with me.